Hello and welcome back to the Claret Blue podcast. This is our Q&A episode. I'm your host, Dan Rowlinson, joined by John Townley as always, but throughout the summer we're going to try and bring in a special guest every so often as well. Today's special guest is Sam Tighe. Sam, freelancer, broadcaster, Sky Sports, Who Scored, all kinds of different platforms I've seen you pop up on. But your Claret Blue debut, surely the highlight of your career so far, this.
Presumably, yeah. I mean, it's certainly the highlight of my day. I'll go as far as that. And we'll
at 10 a.m, so not highlight.
Yeah, let's not get too carried away. But long time in the making. It's funny how it's so difficult to get these things in the diary. But looking forward to speaking to you guys.
Absolutely, likewise. John, how are you? You've been away on holiday. Did you have a nice time?
Yeah, I did. I went to Mallorca for a few days. Could have been longer, but I was preparing for a potential European final, wasn't I? So kind of cut short. I was debating, do we just add on more days? But no, I'm back. To be fair, I don't like going away for like too long because it's nice to get back kind of in the routine as well. So
I've always found in this job, going away for more than a week is really difficult. It's incredible the amount of stuff you miss. And my wife has long complained at me to say, can't we just go away for 2 weeks? It'd be so nice. I'm like, I can't. I miss too much stuff. Yeah, we went away to Egypt back in the day and I was on the internet, like the internet cafe in the all-inclusive hotel, tracking the Stuart Downing rumours every day.
Enjoy the holiday, mate.
No, I can't do it. I'm so sad.
I'm going away soon for 2 weeks. And I'm kind of preparing. I'm doing like loads of work now to prepare for that 2 week period. But I know when I'm coming back, I'm going to be rusty on podcasts and stuff, and also feel like, who's these players we've been linked with? Like, I don't know what's going on. Right, let's start then with some questions from the audience. We're going to dive straight into it from Chris, who says, Villa can only sign free transfers this summer if we don't sell one of our best players. So let's say a £65 million bid comes in for Douglas Luiz, and you are told you can spend the whole £65 million. But not to replace him, as it looks like Ross Barkley is coming in to do that job. Would you sell Douglas Luiz? Now, first of all, I'm not sure Barkley is a Douglas Luiz replacement, but I'll take the point. Do you take that offering, Sam? Do you take 65 million in lose Luiz, or do you think that will stick with him and go with free transfers? A nice hypothetical one to start the show.
Yeah, so to be clear, this is hypothetical, right? Chris is not telling us that this is the case, is he? He's saying, right, what if? I hate hypothetical questions, and I hate them even more.
This isn't a Q&A for you, Sam.
No. I hate them even more when it tugs on my heartstrings, because these are the really difficult decisions you have to make. And the good news is that Monchi, Vidigani and Emery are going to be looking at this in a much more cold-hearted way than we probably would. Because I absolutely adore Dougie, and the thought of him leaving, it's pretty horrible. I reserve those feelings for probably 5 or 6 members of the team. Watkins, McGinn, Emi Martinez, Ezri Konsa are all I hold in the highest regard and the highest esteem, and Douglas Luiz is part of that too. But you put 65 million on the table, and you might start to have a look at that. I would decline 65 million for Konsa, for Martinez, for Watkins. I think they're very, very difficult, nigh on impossible to replace. But I actually think that a central midfielder, a creative central midfielder, as much as we all love him, is probably the most replaceable part of the team. Take the 65 and put 30 down on the table for, I don't know, let's say just Carlos Soler, just because he's been linked with Villa recently, and you've more or less made him up again. And then you have a bit more freedom and a bit more flexibility. So that's a horrible decision that Villa may have to make. I don't think it's one that they would actually want to sanction. But yeah, I think in the end, that's where I would get to. And I would say yes, because the central midfield slot is more replaceable than the others. He feels like if there's a sale to be made and Jacob Ramsey can't fetch the fee because he's has been injured, maybe it's Luiz.
The episode we did, John, the keep sell loan thing, but was that last week or the week before? I can't remember. But we had that same kind of conversation, didn't we? And we veered towards that Douglas Luiz feels like the most saleable asset that we have. A few YouTube comments came back at us to kind of go, yeah, but he is super important as well. And we're aware of that. We don't want to see him go either, but it just feels like, as Sam says, Martinez, Konsa and Watkins, to name 3, and probably McGinn, they feel untouchable. Luiz probably should be, but because there is interest and because he would command a high fee, And as Sam says, you can kind of replace a central midfielder easier. I know that feels a little bit like just something to say, but it does feel like there's something to it. We kind of settled on the same point, didn't we, I think?
Yeah, and we also mentioned that Villa can't wait until August the 15th to make a big sale if they want to bring in new players and improve their squad, bolster their team. So Louise would probably be the quickest sale, which again doesn't sound nice, but I think these are the facts, and Villa aren't in a position to wait around for offers and negotiate for weeks and weeks. I think if there's interest and Arsenal put in a bid, I'd imagine that that's something that can get done quite quickly. Whereas, as you say, Martinez, Watkins, all the other players that we've mentioned, they're players I'd almost go as far as saying you can't sell. You can't replace Watkins. You can't replace Martinez. But as Sam says, you can go some way to at least replacing Louise, or, if not, buying a couple of players to play in a different way. I mean, we've seen how the squad has evolved, the 11 has evolved, the structure of the team. Emery will have a plan, and we have a lot of days before the start of the new season, and even before the start of pre-season, we have like a month and a bit before we play even that Walsall game. So there's a lot of time for Emery to prepare for what he wants to do with the squad, and yeah, a sale you'd have thought will be important to making that happen. Villa won't go into the season without signing any players and without selling any players.
Okay, next question then from LCE. What one area of the side would you say is absolutely essential we recruit this summer? DM for me, Kamara is such a huge player for us and we have no other genuine DM option. Yep. Sam, is that the one?
I think so, yeah. I mean, for the last 14 months, I've been harping on for a right back as well. But what's been very clear is that obviously without Boubacar Kamara, things get a lot more difficult for Aston Villa. And he's now on his, I know that an ACL it can almost be isolated as an injury, but this is the third big chunk of time Kamara has missed since he's joined the club, isn't it? So it's at least 2. I think it's 3. He kind of dips in and out. He's so important, but he is unfortunately somewhat unreliable. So it's probably about time that Villa do something about that. And I think Emery did an amazing job of patching up the midfield in response to Kamara's injury, which happened, must have been about 15 days after the transfer window shut. Not that Villa maybe had that much flexibility, but it was awful timing. And McGinn-Tielemans turned out to be a really nice combo, probably better than I thought it would. It worked better than Louise McGinn, that's for sure, which surprised me. But you can't go into the new season without a proper anchor midfielder in there. And I've got, we've all got our short lists. I want Youssouf Fofana from Monaco. If not, I want Florentino Luis from Benfica. And if not, I want Flynn Downs from West Ham. There's my 1, 2, 3, scaled according to luxurious quality and or price. Yeah. Everyone will have their short list and their wish list. I have mine. And yeah, I think a player to come and play Kamara's role for until, he's going to be out to at least October, isn't he?
We tried to guess, didn't we? I said late November to kind of like be worst case scenario, to be like back in the team, relied upon to be playing week in, week out, which is, not quite half the season, but not a million miles off.
You've got to do something about this. I mean, there's a chance here that, so if you take November as your point there, you're probably halfway into a Champions League campaign at that point. You've probably played 3 or 4 games. You may have been to the Bernabeu or the Camp Nou, and you really, really, really want a Kamara type presence in those games. You don't want to go into those games with let's see if Tielemans and McGinn can hold the fort in midfield. That was a patch job. That's not the plan.
Kamara hasn't got the best history with injuries anyway. A lot of those injuries that previously were contact injuries, but that's part of the job, I suppose, when you're playing in that role. So yeah, Villa certainly need to bring someone in there, and I said previously that Dendoncker we probably should have kept around just to kind of flesh out the squad. Could he have played in some matches and had a impact? Probably. But that, obviously that's happened now. Villa have coped without him just about, at least in the league. But yeah, it's very important now that Villa go into the market and get a DM. I think elsewhere in the team, we know that we can score lots of goals. We have a lot of quality going forward, going back. Yeah, centre-back position, that's a question mark for me, because obviously Longley goes, Tyrone Mings, we don't know what condition he will be in come the first game of the season. Hopefully as the season develops, he'll be okay. But again, that could be, we don't know how long he's going to take to get up to speed. And, for what positions, what's going to happen in those roles. But yeah, DM, certainly the most important, as we've seen, because of Kamara's absence, but also what's going to happen with sales as well. I can't see any sales kind of further up the pitch in terms of your Baileys, Watkins, those players. Obviously, we have Buendia coming back. Zaniolo was gone, but I think that's okay as basically a swap. Again, we don't know what position Buendia is going to be in, but he seems to have made good progress from what was a serious injury. So I'm happy with the bulk of the team, but there's certainly some positions where we need to strengthen now.
And this is a side that ultimately finished fourth, so it's not a terrible squad. It just needs a few additions to help it along and to go again, basically.
Someone like a Ross Barkley, I know that's kind of had, I don't know, maybe mixed reaction. I haven't looked at it completely, but I expect some fans to kind of question it. But I think
it's because of the PTSD I suffered the moment I saw his name.
But Villa need to, as I say, flesh out the team now. We can't be in a position where we go to, like when we went to Brighton and one player gets injured like Ramsey and then Bailey has to go to the left and then the whole team changes. Barkley isn't the best player in the world, but they need options now. Whoever
our options at the moment are Callum Chambers. Would you rather have Barkley come on or Chambers? Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And Villa need to be looking at low cost, all those sorts of things, experience, versatility, and
homegrown as well.
Homegrown as well, yeah.
Part of it.
Certainly.
Yeah, okay. Next question, then I'm going to start with you, John, this time. From Matt, who says, simply, was Leon Bailey the most underrated player in the entire Premier League last season? So some shout, but to be fair, Sam's laughing, but not a million miles away, I don't think.
I thought he was going to say among the Villa team, but I wouldn't say underrated for us because we've been... it's almost so obvious because of where he was only a year ago. Or 18 months ago, maybe. So, yeah, probably is one of the most underrated players. I think a lot of outsiders expect, or maybe thought Bailey was at a certain level anyway, because he came to Villa with, good pedigree, a lot of kind of expectation. And I don't know, whenever I speak to kind of friends or the people in football who aren't related or connected to Villa, they'll always talk about Bailey and say, oh, yeah, good signing, Bailey. And I'd always say, well, he hasn't really done much and he hasn't adapted yet. He's not showing what we thought he would bring. So, kind of next season, i.e. the back end of last season or this season, this was his time. If he didn't show it now, he never was going to. Emery always talks about the kind of turning point being when he substituted him, or he came on the pitch against Liverpool in that match we lost 3-0. I think Carlos was injured maybe, and Bailey came on, but then Bailey came off again in the second half, and that could have gone one or two ways. But instead of Bailey kind of showing his frustration, he just got on with it. And we saw how important he was coming off the bench. And that was almost his role then, kind of being the finisher, I think, as a lot of people said. But actually, he's a player that you can't be without at any point in the match because he's that good now. So, for sure, he's probably one of the most underrated players in the league, one of the best wingers in the league last season. Like I say, one of it, arguably one of the best creators, attackers, whatever you want to call it. We did a video, didn't we, Dan, saying that I wouldn't swap him for any of the winger at one point in the season.
Yeah.
And I stood by that because the form he was showing at one point, I mean, throughout the season really, was, sensational.
What made you laugh there, Sam?
He came within a whisker of going double digits goals and assists in the Premier League, which is a pretty difficult category to slide yourself into and is generally reserved for the very best. So just like the two things don't quite marry up for me in terms of like, clearly, fantasy football players will know he's very good because he gets points. That means general awareness. Everybody that actually watches football knows he's very good because he's playing well. He's got the stats to back it up. Yeah. So I was like, well, I don't know. But then the underrated conversation is always a funny one because it ultimately, like, if you're talking about you feel like a player is underrated, it's because within your kind of bubble of life, you don't see enough people talking about this player. But you don't see what everybody in the world says. So it's always a sort of fundamentally flawed argument, and it's always very difficult to pin down who the underrated players are because it will change from bubble to bubble to bubble. And so for me, I don't think Leon Bailey is underrated because all I see on my timeline is people going mad about him. I actually I saw the question and I actually had a genuine think about who I think the underrated player in the Premier League was this season. And I think the answer was Antoine Semenyo at Bournemouth. And again, that's Villa tinged because that day at the Vitality, he absolutely torched us.
He did.
And so that's according to my perception. So again, it's tinted. So it's a very difficult conversation to have.
Yeah.
But I suspect that the goals and assists for Bailey alerted enough people this season to his real quality, particularly thanks to fantasy football. I know it's not a nice way to talk about football, but it is how a lot of people consume this game.
At one stage, I think that was like FIFA and stuff, wasn't it, a few years ago? So I think we've kind of transitioned now into things like Fantasy Premier League.
Oh, it's 82 rated. Brilliant. That sort of thing.
People are watching games to go like, oh, I need so-and-so to get points. And like, that's a weird phenomenon to me.
So my nephew, who is a little bit younger, he's a teenager. He, when Forest signed Orel Mangala summer before, whichever one it was, I said, oh, they signed him. He goes, yeah, he's great on FIFA. 82 rated, so that's a good signing. I was like, that's not how it works. But but that's what he went with.
That's when people are into football, to be fair. If you get some kind of up to it, then yeah. Right, another one of Sam's favourite next, a silly hypothetical from Steve. I don't know what the point of this is, but I'm going to do it anyway. Real Madrid home, Champions League first game. Would you rather have Martinez in goal, but no Watkins and McGinn? They're suspended, let's say. Or you can play Watkins and McGinn, but Emi Martinez is unavailable. Why this is a thing, I don't know, but I suppose it's who's more important to you in a big game, I suppose, the two or the goalkeeper.
I don't think you can get through a game against Real Madrid without an amazing goalkeeper because they will never stop shooting and never stop coming. So I would take Emi and somehow try to deal with the losses of just about anybody else. So, I mean, I sat there and I watched a Real Madrid game this season against Union Berlin in the Champions League, where Union held on for 93 minutes to a 0-0 draw, and Frederic Rono in goal was an absolute superhero. And then finally, Jude Bellingham scored in the 93rd, and they won 1-0, of course. But basically, the only reason Union were remotely in that game was because their goalkeeper was performing cartwheels on the line. I think that's a key ingredient to playing against Madrid.
I suppose the mindset is probably that do everything you can not to lose, rather than you're going there expecting to win.
Yeah,
so the keeper's more important.
You could pinch a goal from a set piece. You might get a Bailey counter attack. Like, you could probably deal with whatever in terms of losses. But if you want to be within a shouting distance of a point against Madrid, your goal is going to have to make 7 saves minimum. That's it.
The first name on the team sheet would be Martinez, so the rest of it can work itself out. To be fair, I mean, again, we don't know what position Villa are going to be in. We don't know what's going to happen with Duran, whether there's going to be another striker coming in. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the same level as Watkins. But the question itself kind of just got me thinking about, well, actually, the replacements for those players might not be the same as they were last season anyway. I mean, goalkeeper, I don't expect much to be different there. But Martinez is the best keeper in the world, so obviously you're not going to be getting near him with a backup.
Next question, Sam, is for you. I wonder whether this is an in-joke by Dan from Who Scored. It says, how many bookings will Villa pick up in the Premier League next season?
It definitely is an in-joke. It's to do with the odds checker higher or lower show that I occasionally join him on. He knows that booking points is my least favourite market. And so whenever I'm on the show, they make sure they ram it in there to make sure I have to talk about it. I don't know anything about bookings, so I looked it up. My gut said 76. I don't know why that number came to my head, but it did. I looked it up. Villa got 94 this year.
Oh,
so
wow.
70, that's quite a lot, isn't it, 94? It's the fourth most.
Fourth most to work out, like what would be a lot. Obviously, 38 games, 2 or 3 bookings a game would be 90 odd.
Yeah, we're fourth most in the league. Chelsea and Sheffield United, I think, went just over 100. I think the top line was about 104, 105. So it's towards the top end, certainly towards the top end.
John, some homework for you here to go away and find out whether bookings correlate with being a good side or not.
No, because Sheffield United got loads.
Yeah, exactly. But like 38, if you did 2 a game, that's 72. Which 2 a game's not a lot, but 72 does sound like a lot. So yeah,
I think that booking number may need to come down a little bit. 94 seems high.
I think if you're getting to the point when people are getting suspended because of yellows, you're having too many.
Well, the top 3 teams, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, are all the least. City have got nearly less than half of ours. That's interesting. But I guess that's to do with possession and defending, right? It's got to be.
Correlates to possession, I think, pretty heavily. Although Villa weren't exactly shy of the ball. So, and Chelsea had high possession, but high cards. Although Nicholas Jackson went on that run of where he got fucking every game for 10 weeks.
Hypothetical loves the yellow as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, part of the job.
Villa are quite low for fouls committed, though. Like in the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. bottom 7, shall I say?
So we're being punished by the referees then. We're not actually fouling that often, but when we do,
yeah,
we
we're really making them count. This is John Duran's doing. this is John Duran's extremely sharp elbows coming into play.
Let's talk about Tyrone Mings a little bit. There's quite a few questions about him, so let's do a segment about Tyrone Mings. From Darren, first of all. Should we expect to see a change in formation or tactics next season with the return of Mings? Our defensive issues this season with set pieces was something that I feel like every team exploited. Although we only ranked joint 7th with goals conceded, we ranked 5th with the most set piece goals conceded with 16. How will Unai and Austin McPhee look to plug that hole? So first of all, I think it's worth saying Tyrone Mings, there's no point us talking about Mings here for 10 minutes and going, well, we'll see what condition he returns in, because we all know that he's had a bad injury. He may not be the same player, etc., etc. So let's all take that as read. Let's say that we're probably working off the fact that Mings may not even be fit for the first game of the season. If he only comes back in pre-season, then to kind of rely on him and go, right, day one of the Premier League, he's going to be there, nailed on to start. That might be a tall order as well. So let's kind of put all that to one side. How do you assess kind of the Tyrone Mings situation, Sam?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a loaded question, isn't it?
It's very. I mean, it's a very awkward situation because he was a really important pillar of the team in the run up to the Conference League finish, the 7th place, and then Villa signed a new player for his position, and we were sort of heading towards a really awkward position where they were going to have to try and coexist, and probably see Tyrone Mings move over to right centre back. I'd have suggested at the time. Of course, they never played a single minute together. So we're heading back towards that again at some point, and the question is raised again: how do they coexist? Now, there are very few centre backs that can't really coexist, but this is probably going to put Mings in a slightly awkward position either way, I'm guessing. Either the formation kind of tilts a little bit and maybe moves to the other side, and Mings plays sort of tucked in left back, maybe. So the way at the moment that Konsa tucks in on the right and obviously the left back flies forward, maybe you get the opposite going and you get a bit of flexibility there. Or maybe Mings goes right centre back, and when Villa sort of move into a temporary back three and build up, that ends up with Mings in the centre of a three, Konsa on the right, Mings in the middle, Pau in the left channel. Actually, that looks pretty good. I think that would suit all three of those players. But when you build from much deeper on the pitch, it puts Mings at a funny angle, I think, based on his left foot at right centre back. So I don't really know what the answer is. I'm intrigued to see what Emery thinks. There's no rush to figure it out because we need to make sure that Mings comes back nice and quickly. But I still think it's a potentially pretty awkward situation that Villa are barreling towards, although the edge has been softened by the fact that he's been missing for a year. Let's just put it bluntly. Like it would have been a serious talking point last August. Yeah. It's way less of a talking point now.
When Emery signed Torres, I don't think he was doing that to think of... I think he signed him and then thought, right, and this might kind of go against everything that we think about Emery, but I think he signed him thinking Torres is going to play in that position. We'll work out what happens next, because he knew that he was so fundamental in what he wanted Villa to do. It is a difficult one, but I think in an ideal world, Mings would come in and basically be what Longley was this season. He would come in for some Champions League matches, play in cup games, play in matches where Villa have played 3 games in a week or whatever it may be. Be that Longley replacement as such. Like, I know he replaced Mings, so he can then come back into the team, and the Sam says it's less awkward because Mings, I don't think, will be expecting to play week in, week out. I'm sure that's where he wants to get to, but nothing's taking Torres out of the team, and because Torres is so fundamentally important, why would you disrupt what Torres is doing? And I think that would happen if all of a sudden he's playing with a left-footed partner. When Longley came in for a couple of matches and played on the right, didn't he, against, I think it was Fulham and maybe someone else.
Spurs, I think.
Was it Spurs? Yeah.
As well, maybe.
The Fulham match was okay. He made 1 error, but apart from that, Villa played well. What I would say to kind of answer the first question about dealing with set pieces, I don't think the answer is just bring Mings back into the team, because that will disrupt other things. And I don't want that to sound like a particularly negative, but I don't see how it works with Torres and Mings in the same team. As Sam says, there's definitely a way to do it, but then there's certainly a kind of a counterpoint to it as well. So for me, I think Mings would be a part of the squad, shall I say. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, he's got incredible leadership skills. Him being around the team is a massive bonus in itself. And he'll play minutes as well. Torres had a ankle injury for, 2 months, missed other games as well. So while he wasn't injury prone, Villa could be playing another, 45 to 50 games again next season, a similar amount to where they were last season, because they'll be playing 2 extra Champions League games in the league phase. So there's going to be plenty of chances for the whole squad to be used once again. I think it's difficult because Torres is the left side defender, kind of full stop, but it's not as clear cut as that, as we saw with Longley. Longley played a lot of football in the end, so Mings will get his chances to play as well, but I don't think Mings coming back into the 11 is just the solution to deal with Villa's problems.
But how else do you solve the set pieces then? So if it's not Mings back in, like where else do you find the remedy? Because Villa's first choice centre back pairing and the pairing that we all expect and want to see next season, which is Pau Torres and Ezri Konsa, they are 2 of the weaker aerial centre backs in the Premier League. They're average. I think Konsa's probably just below average, and Torres is well below average in that specific like area of the pitch.
Yeah,
and it's obviously creating problems at set pieces. Villa's best header of the ball and attacker of the ball in the air is Ollie Watkins, who plays the John Carew front post role at corners, and then Morgan Rogers has helped a little bit, but very often last season, the third role was given to Boubacar Kamara, who's actually not that great either. Let's be honest. He lost his man a ton of times at corners and caused loads of problems. And there's only so much McGinn nuisancing that you can do before eventually you fall foul of a header. So what else can Villa do? And I know that this is part of the question, but I'm struggling to answer it genuinely. Like, is it that you have to sign Wilfred Ndidi to play the Kamara rotator role because he's massive? You know, do you have to look at the other positions and buy massive players to fill those roles? Because what else do you do?
And this is why it's awkward, because it feels like, should we say, in possession, Villa are very sound. They can build up, and we've seen the football that they can play. But then there are clear limitations in certain situations, and defending set pieces is definitely one. And as Sam says, do you just buy a tall player? It sounds so simple, and basically too simple for it to, yes, you'd improve in one area, but then that would then take away from something else. So it is really difficult, and Villa are never going to be a perfect team, but set pieces is clearly a big Achilles heel, and defending crosses as well, just as a simple thing too. So yeah, again, it kind of points to, well, we certainly need another DM, because when Kamara isn't playing, we definitely need someone to come in, and we need them to be physically capable of dealing with these situations particularly. Does another centre-back come in? Does Konsa continue to play at right back, and you have a more aerially dominant centre-back playing with Torres? These are the only things I can think of, because as I say, I just don't think it's fair on Mings to say to him, okay, on the first day, you need to be playing. You need to be playing basically every game, because you are the only player in the team who can win most first and second contacts in the box.
But it would look very different. It would look very different if Villa just had like Axel Disasi, who he's not the best centre back in the world, but good God, does he win his duels? Like take that goals conceded from set piece tally of 16 and slash it in half. Genuinely, that's how simple this is. Except, unfortunately, it's not. The other tactic here, by the way, guys, is to never give away another corner ever again.
There is that, yeah.
So maybe they just work on that. Barcelona, peak Barcelona under Pep Guardiola, they were weak from set pieces because they were all 5'5". Their solution was to never give the ball away. Have we considered that?
What we haven't considered, and it probably says everything about players' individual attributes and maybe his future. Diego Carlos is a big strapping lad. He should be good at this, and he isn't. Villa
are going to listen to offers for him. He's a big earner. Obviously, he wasn't signed by Emery. That's not to say that he hasn't been a useful player this season. Has he been the player that I thought we had? Possibly not, but he missed practically the whole of his first campaign with an Achilles injury, so it's hard to criticise him kind of too much, because, as I say, that's an injury that can affect someone's career for sure. But yeah, if we're talking about things like defending set pieces, you want Carlos to be the guy to kind of get you out of those situations, but he hasn't been really. Obviously got 2 man of the match awards against Arsenal, which is fantastic for him and for Villa, of course. But I don't think it's personally, I can see a future or next season, shall I say, without Carlos. I think it's a situation where obviously there's interest in him from around Europe. Yeah, I could probably see him moving on, and Villa would have to sign another centre-back, and maybe that would be a good thing because Emery can buy the centre-back that he wants. And I don't know, maybe if you looked at Carlos previously, you'd say, oh yeah, he should be that. But I don't know. I don't know the numbers of what he was putting up in Seville previously. So I don't know if he's dropped off or anything, or if this is just the player that we signed.
I just looking at his percentage of aerial wins, by the way, guys. So while you were talking, it's absolutely
I could tell you were scouring some stats
it was
website.
Astonishingly bad. I mean, again, you look at him. He's barrel chested and massive. You think percentage of aerials won is in the 4th percentile in Europe. 44% win rate in the air. It's actually terrible. It's way worse than I thought it was. And I was criticising Konsa and Torres for being around the 55 mark, and Carlos is at 44. I know he gets a disrupted season, as you've just said, not only the injury, but then he comes in and out. It's probably hard to gain some momentum, but yeah, Villa have got a collection of centre-backs here, barring Mings, who's injured, who simply cannot do that part of the game. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on a touch. Matt says, and we've talked about this, can Mings and Powell play together? Is his question. And I want to take away the fact of like Mings could maybe play an unorthodox left back role and be pushing in like we've seen Conte on the opposite side. I'm talking here that we've got Matty Cash right back and Luca Dean left back, or orthodox full backs, whoever they are. And your centre-back partnership of 2 is Pau Torres and Tyrone Mings as 2 left-footers, something we spoke about before the season started because we thought this may be something we see this year. Obviously, Mings gets injured, but now we're back to that conversation that we had at Hockey Social Club last year, John. And I don't know what we decided on last year. Could the 2 play together in a 2 left-footers?
I said no, Hockley, because for me, you need the right side to be right-footed, the left side to be left-footed. Just in terms of build-up, it makes sense. However, I'm being swayed a bit now by the whole defending set pieces situation. It's not something that I'd like because, as I say, build-up for me is so important, and Villa have proven that throughout the season. Yes, conceding set pieces and crosses and whatnot is clearly a deficiency, but I don't want to take anything away from how we play in possession. So, Mings, by the way, was, I think, quite underrated in how we use the ball. I think that's something that maybe some people didn't quite pick up on last season. But again, he's playing off the left side and he can pick passes easier. On his right side, that isn't going to be quite as accurate or successful, I suppose. So, no, for me, I want a right-sided player playing with Torres or playing with Mings. Again, for me, I just see Torres and Mings as they're fighting for that position.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that, of course, they can play together. And of course, 2 left-footers can play together. Because in the past, it was mostly just right-footers playing together at centre-back, right? Like through the 90s, through the noughties and stuff. A lot of the football we watched, it's not as if it's always been left foot, right foot balance. That just hasn't been the case. But football was not always like this, right? A lot of centre-backs just hoofed it. They just kicked it as far as they could. Football was different back then when it was 2 right-footers. So why couldn't it be 2 left-footers? It's not the same. And as John points out, like the build-up from deep is so important to Emery. It does feel like that left foot, right foot balance is really important. And when Longley played right centre-back, it was proper awkward, wasn't it, at points? It really was. The angles were wrong. There was no confidence. I also watched a few games this year at different points in the Premier League where 2 left-footed centre-backs played for other teams. There's one in particular I remember was Fulham, where Calvin Bassey got stuck at right centre-back.
Yeah.
And he got absolutely torched for 2 terrible right-footed passes that were completely wrong because it was on his wrong foot. And Fulham got done for 2 goals. And I was sat there watching it going, this in an alternate reality, that's Tyrone Mings, that's Villa. And Villa have just conceded 2 goals because Mings has been forced into a difficult pass on his wrong foot. It's like big picture, it feels like they should be able to play together. But the more you drill down into the details, the more it feels like it's probably not going to work.
And that is it. And it is all about details as well, because one mistake will go punished in the Premier League.
And in the Champions League.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And again, this isn't like criticism of Mings. I feel like don't want it to come across like that. I just think it's unfair to say to a player who's been out for a whole year, possibly longer, we don't know, and say you've now got to kind of reimagine what you do, and you've been doing one thing for so long and doing it so well.
Yeah.
Now we're going to put you in an awkward position where you might make mistakes, and you might, I don't think anyone wants to be in that position. And yes, Mings wants to play games, but he's going to be asked to be doing things that he hasn't done before, and that practically I don't think a lot of players could do. So
I'm with you. I think it's really good that you sort of brought up the fact that Mings was very good with the ball the season before. When Villa were doing the kind of take the lead after 4 minutes and then bait the press and bring and draw the opponents on. It was Mings that was stood with the ball at his feet, and it was Mings that was releasing the pass into Douglas Luiz once the press had come. Yeah. He's good at passing. He's good in build-up. He's not as good as Torres, but very few are. It's important not to rewrite history there. Yeah. But sticking him on the right is a different thing entirely. And yeah, I remember John Terry saying that when he got forced to play on the other side at centre back for England, it was like the game had been mirrored and it was really hard for him. And I was like, right, so if John Terry finds it hard, it's perfectly fine for everybody else to find it hard too, right?
I'm possibly about to make a stupid point here, but as we're talking about the details, we're all assuming here that of the two, Torres and Mings, it'll be Mings that plays on the right side because Torres is currently playing on the left. Tyrone Mings injured his right knee. I said this might be a stupid point. If he's having to play on that right side, playing right-footed passes, maybe psychologically thinking, this is the bad leg, this is the leg that I did last year. Firstly, is that a problem? Is that even a thing? Or is the alternative to that if Mings and Torres play together, Mings plays on the left, and we say to Pau Torres, right, well, you've got to be the one that changes your role. Is that a stupid point?
Answer to question number one on the have no idea. Literally not a clue. No idea if it's a thing. No idea if it's a problem. Answer to question number two, I think that I would be stunned if he moves Torres out of left centre-back because he is the best left centre-back. So you don't take your best option at that position. Don't take your best player in that role and compromise him to lift the floor of another. That would be my way of thinking about it. And Emery has always used Pau Torres left centre back. Like I don't see a scenario where Torres ends up on the right. I think everything else moves around to accommodate him. He's
the most proficient, isn't he? Torres, one of the most proficient in Europe at doing what he does. So yeah, certainly don't see him moving over. But the Mings thing is it's an interesting point in kind of a roundabout way of mentally. I don't know which knee Mings injured at Bournemouth. I think it was the left. I'm not too sure. But yeah, playing on the right, Mings just isn't used to playing with his right foot all too often, or at least receiving the ball in that situation. It's all about angles. It's not football isn't as simple as when you pass it on FIFA and you play it with the weak foot and it might be like a bit of a dodgy pass. It's all about how you receive the ball, your body shape. When the opponent presses you, like in the split of, we all saw the video of Tielemans in the pre-season game being closed down by Anthony Gordon, and that was scary. Doing that on your weaker foot, it's just, for me, it just doesn't make sense. But it's an interesting point you raised, Dan, kind of mentally, where does that leave Mings? And we've seen the videos at Bodymore of him kind of doing like virtual reality as well, which probably helps in that sense, kind of getting used to, I suppose, like the mechanics of it again. But it's a different thing playing with contact and playing football for real.
Next up from Barry, he says, before the season, Sam's video on Tifo was bang on, saying straight swapping Pau for Mings betters our build-up potential, but worsens our already weak aerial ability in defence. Big tick for you, Sam. Well done. Correct.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about that video.
So, with Mings coming back, how does Sam think Emery will try and solve those defensive area problems? Where does Mings play, if anywhere? Where should we be trying in the market to combat those defensive problems? Now, I realise reading that question, we've pretty much answered it, haven't we?
We've pretty much answered all of those strands. So I'm inclined to believe you just put it in there because you wanted to give me that little nugget of praise.
Yeah,
thank you very much. That is literally the nicest thing anyone has ever said about that video. I'd like to talk about that video, actually, if you don't mind. Because I got a load of stick for it, which is fair, well, not fair enough at all, but kind of fair enough. Some of it was fair enough. A lot of it was me basically stood at a screen going, oh my God, how the hell are Pau Torres and Tyrone Mings going to play together? This is super awkward. There's like 7 minutes of me having a mental crisis. And it literally never happened because Tyrone Mings went down and Torres came in. And they haven't played a single minute of football together. So basically the entire first half of that video was made completely redundant by fate. The next bit was, you know, obviously Torres better in build-up, worse in aerials. That was true. And the other bit was the fact that I didn't really like the signing of Yuri Tielemans. For about 2.5 months, I felt incredibly justified. And then something happened somewhere. AZ Alkmaar, I think. Maybe Fulham at home. It was definitely in that area.
Fulham at home was his first league start.
And he was really good. Played off the left, which I don't like, but he was really good. And then Alkmaar, he was brilliant. And I was like, okay, I might be wrong. I might be wrong. We'll see. And then, yeah, I was wrong because he was brilliant against Arsenal, brilliant against Man City, and just a generally very positive presence. And towards the end of the season, frankly, he was a lot better than Douglas Luiz was in the midfield pivot. The problem I had with Tielemans was that what I saw at the end of Leicester was really not good. Like, really not good. Not just from a playing perspective. Like, I thought he looked really slow and really sluggish. I thought he committed himself ahead of the ball and didn't really make much of an effort to come back. I was questioning his mentality, but obviously they were being relegated. But I was looking at the miles on the clock for Tielemans and thinking, this man has played an awful lot of football. And while he appears to be in his prime, age sort of 26, 27, he's actually played 10 years of football. He might be past his prime. Have Villa just given... I don't know how much he's on, but it was a free transfer and he's a notable player. Let's call it minimum 100 grand a week, and it might be more. Have Villa just given 100 grand a week for 4 years to a guy who is past his best? That was my genuine concern. And for 2.5 months, I was right, and then I was wrong, basically, because he's been really good. And his turnaround, like I was sat there, I watched the Zrinski game. He was rubbish against Zrinski. He was rubbish against Legia in the first game. And I was like, well, if you can't play against Legia and Zrinski, what, like, where's the turnaround? Where's the point at which this starts to succeed? And funnily enough, it was actually against Fulham and a much better team that it actually started to turn. But there's something about that break that Tielemans had from football there, where, like, if you're 16, Anderlecht, key player, a game every 3 days, and then you go and you play for top teams and you play every single week for 10 years, there is a monotony to that I think we don't necessarily appreciate. I've been speaking to sports scientists and people around the game to try and get a handle on this, and they talk about how players need a mental break just as much as a physical break. And spelling Tielemans for those 2.5 months and not really playing him that much may have just rejuvenated him mentally to the point where it has fixed him. Yeah, along with a bit of Unai Emery magic, of course. And I'm going to try and take that into account this time with the potential signing, as we sit here recording today, of Ross Barkley, because it's not a player that I, when I read the name, I thought, oh God, because he was a bit dramatic, wasn't he, at the end of the day, in his last spell at Villa, and it ended really poorly. Yeah. But Emery appears to know how to take a player like this and really work some magic and rejuvenate them. And I'm going to try and keep that front and centre in my mind with the Ross Barkley discussion, because a little break there from Tielemans, just the correct treatment of him, it seems to have done incredible things. Did you think when he signed, did you think he's good or bad?
I thought it was going to be good, but I did have also some worries that we heard from our Leicester expert about the Tielemans head wobble, about when he looks unfit, he'll kind of chase back and he'll kind of wobble his head around. Like, when you see that, you know, he's kind of struggling a little bit. And I'd also seen the kind of minutes played throughout his career of somebody who's about 32 when he's 26 or 27, and you have those same things. Okay, maybe he's, you know, the Wayne Rooney kind of thing. He started very early and he's played a lot of football for club and for country. Yeah. Has he kind of reached the limit? And we said at the start of the season, and I know this because I've been listening back to our podcast to put something together for the end of the season.
To get you off to sleep at night, yeah.
Yeah, and that. We were saying things like, Tielemans looks so off it. He's miles off the pace, and that was true at the time. And then all of a sudden, me and John are filming a video going, we were wrong about Yuri Tielemans. He's crucial to this team, because that was also true. And that is the nature of, first of all, a period of 9 months, and things change, opinions change. And I think you were right to feel the way you did at the time. And also very, well, I don't know what the word is, not too proud to hold your hands up and say, well, by now I'm actually wrong on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was probably too closed off to the possibility of me not being wrong. Like, I was like, this is a disaster. This is stupid. Why have we done this? I'm not sure. Hope it works out. So I just got to adjust my mentality for this summer, because I have a habit of looking at the negatives too hard. Like I was like enamored with Pau Torres' ball playing strengths, but so worried about the knock-on effect of set pieces. I wasn't excited about the signing, and I should have been, because look at what he's done to the team. He's a net positive, no doubt about it. And Tielemans, I was so worried about all these things that we've discussed. I literally didn't want him to sign, and I was gutted when he signed. I was like, Sam, enjoy football a bit more, mate. Like, stop worrying so much.
I had the same kind of thing about Torres. Again, going back to our season preview, I wasn't saying like, oh, he's going to be a bad player, but my thing was, well, what about Tyrone Mings? Like, Mings and Consa were unbelievable together last year. Where's this Pau Torres guy fit in? Like, is one of them going to have to play left back? And obviously, again, that never came to fruition as well. But I almost felt silly months later about, oh, I can't believe I could doubt with this guy. Obviously, he's going to start. But what we had the season before with Mings and Consa was so good. The idea of like upsetting that rhythm seemed alien to me.
Because, so to build on this, and it sort of tapped into what we were talking about before, but like Mings and Consa was great. And that run all the way through to 7th, Villa did not concede many goals at all. It was just clean sheet central. Very, very solid team. Very good defensive line, like consistently churning out clean sheet victories. It was brilliant to watch. And you were thinking, why would you mess with that? Like, set pieces weren't a concern back then. Mings was knocking everything out of the box left and right and scoring against Fulham for a critical win as well, doing the bit at the other end. Like, I was like, why would you mess with that? That's crazy. And I understood that Pau Torres had such strengths, but I genuinely believed that Unai Emery was trying to solve a problem that Villa were probably not going to encounter for another year. I thought he was like 1 year ahead of where he should have been. Obviously, this sounds so stupid, me talking about this like this. He knows better. But having a good ball-playing centre-back is an essential quality of a top team, because you need to break teams down. You need to dictate and build up. And I was like, we're not there yet. We might be in a year, but I don't think we're there. Anyway, again, fair enough. But I was too wrapped up in that. I was too wrapped up in the idea that Emery was 1 year ahead of where he should have been, trying to solve a problem that's probably 2025's problem, and not excited enough about what Pau Torres was bringing in the short term and the boost that he was going to give Villa for this season.
Interesting little discussion. Okay, well, let's move on then to the silly part of the show, where we answer stupid questions, basically. We've got 3 today, 2 from Hulberto and 1 from Ben. First of all, simply says, and John, maybe this is one for you straight away, what is your perfect holiday? 4 days in Mallorca?
Holiday. more than 4 days, super. I do love Mallorca. Direct flight from Birmingham, no hassle. Sounds. Yeah, my holidays are quite. I'm not one to do the whole like sightseeing stuff. Like it really doesn't.
No, that's surprising me. I thought you would be that.
No, not really. Like we went to Athens for a football match, and I went around with Jacob, and I just wasn't really interested. I was more bothered by like, like, there's a lot of.
It's like literally the start of the world.
No, I was walking around, and I don't know. I think I needed to know more about what I was looking at rather than the cats.
You need like one of those guided tours or something like that.
But that's not something that I would do because it's just not, you know. And then they had the big, what's the big thing on the hill? Which doesn't sound great, I know. Acropolis, is that it?
Acropolis, yeah.
If I said that wrong, yeah. Again, like, looked great, but I'm more than happy just to go on a sunbed and sit under a palm tree. Like that's my holiday.
So this reminds me of my family holidays when I was 7, when my parents would take me to like really historic places and be like, look at this is incredible. And I remember standing in Pompeii and being like, so what? It fell apart. And my parents being like, mate.
That's literally what the other because we bumped into the other Villa reporters like near the Acropolis, and they were explaining what they were looking at, and I was like, "All right, okay, I'm gonna grab a water." Like, I'm not particularly fussed.
Honestly, that's really surprised me. I'm curious how other people assess your personality based off just listening to the podcast. But for you to kind of go and sit still and basically do nothing is not what you're normally like. You're so like on it all the time. I suppose you need that.
That's a holiday,
that rest time. Yeah. I thought you'd be like, go exploring, like going on a cave dive, or these sort of things that you just do on a holiday. I thought that'd be
not for me.
And there was me thinking that you were a man of the world, of a philosophical and inquisitive nature, and Dan and I were both wrong.
Sam, your ideal holiday, perfect holiday?
We'll literally take any holiday whatsoever right now. I've got a 4-month-old, so I just would take literally anything.
Just a day would be nice.
Yeah, yeah. But my perfect holiday is the honeymoon that I never got to go on. Not because it was fine. Me and my wife are happily married, but because we had a plan for a wicked honeymoon that COVID crushed. Because it made hopping countries very, very difficult at that time. That the amount of paperwork just to get into one meant that to hop around a little bit would have been a disaster. But we wanted to do one of those proper safaris in like Kenya or Tanzania, like stay out for a week and then fly to the Maldives. So one day, maybe when my son is like 6 or 7 or something like that, and is like, old enough to appreciate that, like, whoa, that's a zebra or something like that. Maybe we can actually go ahead and do that 2-parter. So that is now enshrined as my perfect holiday. A week's proper safari in East Africa, off to the Maldives to relax. Maybe via Dubai on the way back. I've never been.
Yeah. Have either of you ever been on a cruise?
No. Does the ferry to France count?
No. I don't think so. My next holiday is a cruise. I've never done it before either.
Where are you going?
It's Spain and France. It's like a Mediterranean.
Mediterranean, nice.
Yeah, it's where there was 2 options. One did Italy as well, but that was a little bit more expensive and later in the year. So I think it's Marseille, Barcelona, not around the coast of Spain. I've never done it before, but my wife has, and her family have done loads of these in the past. Like a nan and granddad go on cruises all the time. They say it's not the best thing ever.
Isn't it? There are people in this world that are cruise people, and there are people that are not, and there is literally no middle ground whatsoever.
And the thing is, though, like, I'm like John. I could go to a hotel in Greece or whatever for 2 weeks, sit around the pool, eat food, and be very happy. That's basically what the cruise ship is. Like, you could do that there, but you can go like cinemas, casinos, whatever on the ship, which I think is mad.
Yeah.
But then every couple of days you go to Barcelona for the day, and then you go to France for the day, and you kind of do the little bits of travelling, go and have a pancake in a cafe in France. Yeah, tick, right, back on the boat now to log on the pool. Like, I'm happy with that. So whether I say that's a dream holiday, I'll let you know in a few weeks when I've been and done it. I like the idea of it. Sounds cool. Sounds fun.
Is this a bit of an adult thing as well? Because you've got a 1-year-old now, haven't you? So like there's daycare and just like ship him off over there. No pun intended.
That's the real reason.
Yeah, you go over there, Wilf, for 8 hours.
Right, next question. We'll go for Ben next. Hilberto can end the show. Actually, no, let's get Hilberto's 2 out of the way. I don't know where he's going with this, Sam, so I'll let you interpret this in any way which you like. He says, question for Sam: start, bench, or sell Dan, John, and Matt.
I saw this one come in, so I gave it a little think, and
I appreciate the effort.
I spoke to the accountants over at Sam Tighe FC, and turns out, similar to Villa, we also have massive PSR concerns, and we are right on the line. So, sadly, we are being forced to sell our young homegrown prospect in the form of John Townley. You will just fetch the biggest fee, and you are pure profit. I'm taking that as a compliment. So you're being sold to fund the rest of the transfer. That is a compliment for sure. I'm now worried about where I fall into this. With only 2 options left. And they both involve playing. Oh, no. I'm keeping Kendrick partially out of respect for his long career. Long career. But I think he's only got super sub minutes in him at this point. So he's going to be on the bench, which means that you... Rollo, you are the starter. I mean, you're pretty much ever present. I mean, you're sort of doing all. You're very busy body. I can imagine you as my kind of N'Golo Kante like figure in midfield, putting out fires, starting attacks. It's just every time I load up social media, you've done something else. The work rate is incredible. That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of personality and characteristic I want in my team. No, so I appreciate that. When I said then I was worried about the positions left, I thought it was keep, loan, sell. I was thinking I was going to be loaned out to some other podcast. I was worried about that. Shipped out. So I forgot that start was the 3rd option. So start, bench, sell. Yeah, I haven't misread that, have I? Start, bench, sell. So I'm happy with that, buzzing with that starting. You're right. I'm doing a lot, which is why I'm having a 2-week holiday very, very soon. The last question then. This is also for you, but we will also answer it as well. From Ben, who says, Sam has to have his hairstyle based on one of the 3 following Villa personnel, past or present. Jack Grealish is short on the sides and hair slicked back. Douglas Luiz is blonde dreads, or John McGinn's short all over. What are you going for and why?
John, I'll come to you in a second as well. You also have to answer this.
This is a very, very easy answer. Douglas Luiz's hairstyle on me would essentially be cultural appropriation, so we can't do that. I have a very funny shaped head that I hide using my hair. So John McGinn's style is out. And we all know that the secret behind Jack Grealish's incredible talent and ability is all kept stuffed up in his hair. So stands to reason that if I grew that, I'd also be just as good at football.
In an ideal world, I'd just say John McGinn, because I don't like how haircuts need to be like, I want to wake up and just have a skinhead, but then I don't think I'd suit it. Like, I don't, I wish that I didn't care what people thought about how I looked, which I don't really, but do you know what I mean? In an ideal world, you just got out of bed and crack on when you're there. Don't get me wrong, Grealish's trim was fantastic when he was at Villa. I think it's kind of gone off the rails a little bit now with his hairband and stuff. I'm not a big fan of that. I would say McGinn because low effort. And to be fair, it looks good on McGinn.
It looks good on McGinn, yeah, it suits him. He's got quite a big head.
One of those where you don't know if it suits you until you try it, that kind of skinhead, kind of like Ross Barkley style. Like, it looks good on some people, but then on other people it might not be great. I don't know how that would work with me. So,
and you're right, you don't know until you've done it, and if it's bad, well, it's too late.
Sorry,
you cannot stick it back on. Exactly. It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, this is again one for shouldn't care what people think, and I don't really, but inevitably somebody leaves a YouTube comment and you go, that's ruined my day. I would also go McGinn for the and I won't be able to pull it off because McGinn's at least got a good hairline, but I am of the ilk of at some point I am going to have to cut my hair short, and I'm already thinking about, if I'm still doing the podcast by then, I'm going to hop on a call one of these days, John, and you're going to go, oh my God, you've cut all your hair off. And that's going to make me think, I shouldn't have done that. Or I should have done it earlier.
I won't react.
What are the comments going to think? So if at some point I start wearing a hat, I'll probably cut my hair off and I'm too embarrassed to show it. But it comes to us all, doesn't it, Sam and John? At some point, we all lose our hair.
Presumably, yeah. You start to grow more of it down here to compensate up here.
I wish I could do that.
Sorry, for those listening on audio, by down here I meant beard, not down there.
Worth clarifying.
What you get up to in your own time, Sam, is not allowed. Right, that is the end of today's episode. Thank you both for joining me this afternoon. This morning, sorry. It's been a real pleasure to chat some serious Aston Villa and some nonsense as always. This is our main kind of episode for the week. We'll also be doing a Champions League finance explainer with Dave Powell, our Reach PLC's business expert. Get a bit of an insight on how much money Villa will make basically off next season's Champions League campaign. That will hopefully be out later this week. As I said, I am going off on holiday soon, but you shouldn't notice a decline in content because we are pre-recording stuff to come out. So keep an eye on our social media channels for what's coming and when. Stay subscribed to the Claret Blue podcast to keep up to date with everything, and we'll see you on the next one.